All right, let's dive into one of the biggest, most fundamental questions out there, one that really gets to the heart of how we see the world. Today, we're talking about epistemology, basically the study of knowledge itself.
So let's just start with this. How do you actually know that the things you think you know are, well, true? What's the real difference between just believing something really, really strongly and actually truly knowing it? It sounds simple, but it gets messy fast.
Think about this for a second. You're pretty sure you turned off the stove this morning. You believe you did. But do you know it? You know that little nagging feeling you get in the back of your mind? That anxiety? That right there, that's the gap between believing something and knowing it for sure. And that gap is exactly what epistemology is all about. Okay, so here's the game plan for how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll break down what it even means to know something. Then, we're going to get into this huge philosophical showdown over where our knowledge comes from. After that, we'll look at how we justify our beliefs, and we'll even ask what truth really is. And finally, we'll tie it all back to your actual, everyday life.
So, first up, what does it mean to know? For literally centuries, philosophers have tried to nail down a solid definition. And the most classic starting point breaks knowledge down into three essential ingredients. The first ingredient is pretty straightforward. It's belief. You just can't know something if you don't believe it in the first place. If you say, I know the earth is round, you're also saying, I believe the earth is round. It's that first step, just accepting that something is true.
But just believing something isn't enough, obviously. I could believe the moon is made of green cheese, but that doesn't make it knowledge. So ingredient number 2 is truth. Your belief has to actually match up with reality. It has to be accurate. And here's the secret sauce. The third piece is justification. This is what separates real knowledge from just a lucky guess, right? If you guess a coin will land on heads, and it does, well, you had a true belief for a second there, but you didn't know it. To have knowledge, you need a good reason, some kind of evidence to back up your true belief. So you put it all together, and you get this classic philosophical formula. Knowledge is a justified true belief. You have to believe it, it has to be true, and you have to have a good reason for it. This simple little equation has pretty much been the foundation of epistemology for thousands of years. Okay, so if knowledge needs justification, well, that leads to a pretty huge question. Where does that justification even come from? This question kicked off one of the biggest debates in all of philosophy, and it basically split thinkers into two major camps. The whole debate really boils down to this. On one side, you've got the rationalists, guys like René Descartes. They argued that true knowledge comes from pure reason. That aha moment you have just by thinking something through, like knowing 2 plus 2 equals 4 without having to go count apples. But on the other side, you've got the empiricists, like John Locke. And they said, hold on a minute. For them, all knowledge comes from our senses, from what we see, hear, taste, and touch. You can't know what fire is really like until you've felt its warmth. And this quote? This is like the ultimate rationalist anthem. Descartes literally tried to doubt everything he could possibly doubt. His senses, the world around him, everything. But he realized that the very act of doubting proved that he was thinking. And if he was thinking, well, he had to exist to do the thinking. For Descartes, this one idea, found through reason alone, was the rock-solid foundation for everything else he could claim to know. So whether our knowledge comes from our minds or our senses, we still have to figure out how our beliefs hold each other up. Is our knowledge built like a skyscraper, or is it more like a spider's web? Philosophers have come up with a few different models to explain how justification works. Let's look at the big three. Foundationalism pictures your knowledge like a building. It rests on a super solid foundation of basic, self-evident beliefs, like I exist. Then there's coherentism, which sees knowledge as more of a web. No single belief is the foundation. Instead, the whole system is strong because all the different threads, all your beliefs, connect and support each other. And finally, you have reliabilism, which is less about the structure and more about where the belief came from. It just asks, was this belief formed by a reliable process? Trusting your eyes on a sunny day is pretty reliable. Trusting a dream? Not so much. We've hit belief, we've hit justification, but now we got to tackle that tricky word in the middle, truth. It seems obvious that a belief has to be true to be knowledge, but what does true even mean? Yeah, that's another giant philosophical rabbit hole. So, yeah, philosophers don't even agree on what truth is. The one that feels most natural is the correspondence theory. Something is true if it matches the real world. The cat is on the mat is true if, you look over and there's a cat on the mat. But what about something like justice? The coherence theory says a belief is true if it fits in logically with everything else you believe. Then you've got the pragmatic theory, which just asks, does it work? For them, a belief is true if acting on it leads to good, practical results. All right, I know this has been a lot of abstract thinking, but let's bring it all back down to earth. Why on earth should you care about justification and theories of truth? Because honestly, these aren't just ideas for philosophy class, they're tools for navigating the real world. Seriously, understanding epistemology is like getting a user manual for your own brain. It helps you think critically so you can evaluate the news or scientific claims you come across. It pushes you to question your own assumptions, which is huge for personal growth. And at the end of the day, it helps you make better, smarter, more informed decisions about pretty much everything in your life. Here's the bottom line. We are swimming, maybe even drowning, in an ocean of information, misinformation, and flat-out noise every single day. Epistemology isn't just some dusty old academic subject. It's a survival kit for the 21st century. It gives you the tools you need to tell the difference between what's real and what just feels real, so you can build a clearer, wiser picture of the world. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Now that you've got these tools for thinking about what you know, what's one belief you hold, big or small, that might be worth taking a closer look at? How is it justified? Is it really true? And how do you know what you know?